Either one of you has a brilliant idea, which I realize is highly unlikely.
Why don't we just kill him?
You know, given the popularity of Five Nights at Freddy's, a game that till this day still holds up, a movie adaptation was obviously gonna happen eventually, even if the plot and material wasn't exactly there. Released in 2021, Willy's Wonderland may not share any initial similarities aside from evil animatronic animals, as capturing the game's essence would be near impossible, but it does deliver a fun movie that embraces its chaotic setting and understands that's all something like this can hope to be. Then, in 2023, they made this. From the same producers that brought you Megan, no doubt, brings us an adaptation of something that had no business being adapted, and botched the whole thing beyond recognition. This is a weird movie. It's definitely not good, I don't think it's necessarily all that hated, but some of the decisions made here are confusing to say the least. Even if you exclude the source material, the movie makes an odd decision to go in a more serious direction, focusing a lot more on its characters and the dark issue of child abduction. Now, this kind of thing could be okay, given it was done well, which it's not, but at the end of the day, it's still a horror movie that's trying to retain some resemblance of the game it's based on. At least that's what you'd expect, but there's a few reasons this doesn't happen, the most apparent being the PG-13 rating.
Is this a joke?
I guess this was done to have a younger audience. I do find it funny you can imply incredibly gruesome deaths, basically show the remains, but by not seeing it happen, it becomes okay. And I do hope the kids who aren't kept up by this enjoyed the movie, because they kind of took away one of the best parts. Again, maybe since they're trying to be serious, they think it's not needed, but if that's the case, why do kids even need to see it? Honestly, they'd probably find it boring, and I just don't get why a movie about evil animatronic animals based off a game that's not for kids has to be made appropriate for kids. The other thing the game heavily relied on being its jump scares are not really done that well either. It's just not where the focus went. I wouldn't call this scary by any means, and given that none of the important stuff is done right, what do we have left? Well, if the opening scene is anything to go by, you may think I'm wrong, and they actually have the right idea. It's a scary enough scene for what it's worth, a decent way to start the movie. And after being strapped to a torture device, I do like how you think he might escape, and yes, this will be relevant later, so I have to admit, it's a decent intro. It's not too long, the device is memorable, and given we don't see it make any contact, it's perfectly okay for younger kids to watch. Fortunately, it's downhill from here. One of the issues I noticed that's immediately apparent are the characters having inconsistently weird personalities. We see this with our lead, Mike, played by Josh Hutcherson, who spends most of the movie trying to put you to sleep, aside from some brief erotic behavior to serve the plot, and his younger sister Abby, played by Piper Rubio, could have just been his daughter, but whatever, unique I guess, who has this weird chemistry when she makes fun of Mike half the time, and half the time she doesn't.
My friend says you're an idiot.
Give me the vest.
No.
Give me the vest. Now.
Are you gonna give me away?
I could give her a pass given she's his younger sister, so I guess it makes sense, but believe me, it only gets more bizarre from here. Also, when I said erotic behavior, I literally meant one scene because the plot needs it. Now don't worry, he's not just beating the shit out of some guy for no reason. He actually saw him dragging his son and assumed he was abducting him. Sure, he didn't have to beat him half to death, but it's the only foolproof way.
I can't believe you're not in jail!
This doesn't mean the end for his mall security career, but luckily career counselor Steve, played by Matthew Lillard, is able to sum up the movie's development process.
It's like you're not even trying here.
He also explains the important stuff, like how he keeps losing his job, along with probably being the antagonist of the movie. Not trying to spoil it, but he makes it very obvious.
I am just trying to figure out who you are, Mr. Michael would you like some coffee? I made some coffee. I have a job for you.
He then offers him a security job at the pizzeria, which he initially refuses because he can't work nights, and we move on to the weird edition of the movie in which he constantly dreams about his brother being kidnapped. We'll get into how this ties in later, but for me, the resolution is not worth the time spent on it. There's just too much of it. It makes the movie longer than it needs to be. It's not anything new, and it's simply not that interesting. Again, compared to Willy's Wonderland that knew what the audience wanted, I really don't know who wanted this. Doesn't help that Mike is dull as shit. I'll give them some credit for trying to do something different, but upon first seeing it, I just wanted these scenes to end. He, of course, takes a job upon finding out his Aunt Jane, played by Mary Masterson, is trying to take custody of Abby, and I don't know what to make of this character. She thinks Abby's mentally ill for some odd reasons.
Oh, right. Perfectly normal to sit around drawing pictures all day and talking to magical creatures who do not exist. Listen.
Yeah, if your kids are doing that, definitely mentally ill. That's serious stuff.
Don't tell me to calm down. You're the doctor, and you're making me feel like I'm the crazy one?
Am I missing something? Is this what you usually do if you want custody of a child? Maybe? Then there's Doug. What's up with Doug? Granted, she does only want the money, and yes, I have seen some dumb cases in real life of late, but this is probably not how you should act.
It's like you're not even trying here.
As for the first night at the pizzeria, not a whole lot happens, aside from the jump scare. I don't think that would really scare anybody, but we do get our first look at the animatronics, less than a half hour in, and not too bad. The dream sequences now include kids that run away, completely new idea, but that's about it, and the next day, Jane devises a plan to get Mike fired. Oddly enough, I'm still more intrigued by Doug. Are they going to address...
Is that guy okay?
I just realized I shouldn't be hearing any of this.
Okay, it still doesn't explain what was wrong in the previous scene, but at least they addressed it, and that does make him the most normal character in this movie. That's saying something. I'll give some credit to her stealing something. That's some detail. And all of a sudden, Abby wants to come with Mike. Would have been nice to give them some positive chemistry first, but he says no, and the time has come to meet the weirdest character in the movie. This would be Officer Vanessa, played by Elizabeth Lair, and her randomly showing up, asking weird questions does kind of make sense, eventually, but a lot of the other stuff doesn't.
It's one of the reasons why you're gonna quit.
I'm sorry?
Oh yeah, you security hires? You never last.
It's more than obvious she knows something is going on, and has some personal reason for not saying it, but then there's this.
Prepare to have your mind blown.
Why?
This is...
The best thing you've seen in your entire life?
Not really.
Wanna dance?
What? Hang on a second, okay? You just fucking met. You're clearly trying to warn him about something, and, spoiler, that something does not justify being this excited about animatronic animals designed for kids. In fact, it would be the exact opposite. Maybe I'm missing something, but it's like they're trying to divert expectations in a way that simply doesn't make sense.
It's like you're not even trying here.
She also points out the kids going missing. Again, figure it out, it's not that complicated. And with our bizarre collection of characters established, it's time to lose a few that we don't need. I'm referring to the vandals that get picked off one by the animatronics, but the PG-13 limitations really hold this back for me. I'm sure they did the best they could, and to be fair, it's not terrible. It is the first time we get to see these things do something violent, but it's just not that memorable. Jump scares aren't that good either, if you even want to call them that. I knew he was in the closet with him, but at least it's okay for young audiences. No, don't show that. Look at the video restricted, okay? If you don't show that, it'll be okay. So remember to like the video, obviously, and subscribe down below. But don't look down below because it's where the severed arm is. I mean nothing. Nothing. Unfortunately, the vandalism and the fact that he took sleeping pills does make him more than liable. But Vanessa, despite the fact that she wants him to quit, which we'll find out the reason to later, decides not to file anything because...
So I used to have a brother. His name was Garrett.
Sad backstory. Sad backstory about a happy family, because who would have guessed it would have been a happy family? Normally when somebody gets kidnapped in a movie, it's a bad family. A bad family that doesn't get along. Didn't they know that? Her reason for not filing could have been specifically so he wouldn't lose Abby, but it's not really mentioned here, so I don't know.
It's like you're not even trying here.
So, due to Max's PG-13 demise, who was incidentally the babysitter, he has no choice but to bring Abby along.
This is not a vacation, okay? You're not here to have fun.
I don't think anybody's having fun here. What happens next is just weird. I apologize if you think I'm putting too much into this, but hear me out. First, she befriends the animatronics. That's okay. We know they're still evil, even if you didn't play the game, that's obvious. But the thing is, he doesn't look like somebody who just witnessed a bunch of animatronic robots coming to life. He's surprised to a point, but accepts it rather easily, along with the fact that they're possessed by the ghosts of missing children.
Of course. How else could they make the robots move?
All again, give them credit for not doing the denial cliche, but it's just too fucking casual. I mean, he doesn't even seem to give a shit. It's really about the connection it might have to his missing brother, but he looks like it's no big fucking deal. Oh, you've been seeing a yellow-haired kid in your dreams too, huh? Do you know what it might mean? No? Do you mind asking next time? I'd really appreciate it. I mean, as you can tell, I'm overly enthused.
I would really appreciate that.
It gets even stranger as the next night Vanessa's there too, in which we find out she knew about this, and they build a fort. Because filler? We have a big montage of them and the animatronics with music and everything. It goes without saying, this is not Five Nights at Freddy's, but I don't know what this is, period. You may think this is the weird part, and it kind of is, but after this, things just get stupid. If this was the only secret Vanessa was keeping, that'd be one thing. It would explain why she was having fun with it, but it's not, and when we finally do find out what's going on, this won't make any sense. And then, out of nowhere, she acts like bringing Abby along was not a good idea, but refuses to say why.
What I can't wrap my head around is why.
Well, the babysitter was PG-13 to death, but you could have, I don't know, given him the reason not to? Yes, there is a reason why she doesn't want to say. Take a wild guess to what that is. But to me, it's kind of like the opening scene of Resident Evil Village. If you played that game, you'll know what I mean. At some point, withholding life or death information is just not a good idea. Abby eventually gets hurt for a reason that really is completely accidental. But apparently this means Mike is wrong, and he tries one last time to find out what the hell is going on.
What are you so afraid of?
You can do whatever you want with your own life, but if you ever bring Abby back here again, I will shoot you.
Is she competing with Tommy Wiseau to see who can say the most random shit? Is threatening to kill him really the most sensible thing at this point, opposed to telling him the fucking truth?
Technically, that's illegal.
The next scene is a bit confusing, who would have guessed. I know the idea is he's leaving Abby with Jane because Vanessa threatened to kill him, and I guess there is no other babysitter available anywhere, but that's not what this looks like.
Come have a seat, alright?
What did you do?
I promise you this is not what you think it is.
I hate you.
Well, look, when she calms down, can you, tell her that I'm sorry?
Again, apparently this is not a discussion about her taking Abby, so I really don't know what to make of this. I guess she just isn't listening, and that's that. You may be thinking Abby's gonna run away as a result, but no, that doesn't happen either. I don't know why this scene exists, it doesn't really go anywhere. It's essentially forced writing that somehow has no purpose.
It's like you're not even trying here.
After this, Mike has another dream, and is given the choice to stay with Garrett forever, but in return he must give them Abby. He basically accepts.
What an asshole.
But then realizes living in a dream in exchange for a real person is probably not right, but it's too late. He again reenacts the audience.
I made a mistake! Please, I don't want this!
And is then attacked and put in the same torture device from the intro. Again, the way he escapes was foreshadowed earlier. That's a nice touch. And luckily for him, unlike the last two who came to this hall, the door magically stops being locked. And then again, it may have been Vanessa, but it's not really explained. Jane is then killed, a great character that was. And I guess this is supposed to be the reason for Abby being upset, so she'd agree to go with them to the pizzeria. But I kind of think she would have done that anyway, so I don't see the point. This scene is kind of funny, I'm not gonna lie. It makes no sense, but it is funny. And we finally find out what the hell is wrong with Vanessa, along with a few other important plot points. Like them wanting to make Abby one of them. Who would have figured that out? We learn that it's not only the children's ghosts, but also their bodies inside there, which doesn't change that much as we saw a hand sticking out earlier, so it's not that shocking. But the biggest twist of all, their leader, aka the Yellow Rabbit, is Vanessa's father. Wait, what?
He's my father.
So you're telling me that's your fucking excuse. That's your reasoning for not saying anything, risking his sister's life, and just hinting at shit throughout the whole movie. This doesn't explain half the shit we've seen. Her personality still makes no sense for somebody who's trying to warn him, but can't talk about it because it's hard. And to top it all off, she almost lets him go in alone with his injuries, despite being a fucking cop. Also, if you didn't notice, William Afton is obviously the career counselor from earlier. It couldn't have been more obvious if they tried. Vanessa does eventually show up. The climax is not that memorable, more so sleep-inducing, but there is one good bit. But Abby draws a picture of the Yellow Rabbit killing the children, which is enough to break his influence over them for good. Because they like to draw, and she likes to draw, so... yeah.
It's like you're not even trying here.
Mike turns the lights on because he has to do something, and that was needed, so in the end, he's PG-13 to death. Vanessa, oddly enough, does not emerge from her coma in this movie, but she'll be okay, the sequel cast says so, because a movie with terrible reviews that shouldn't have happened to begin with means nothing when the box office is somehow a success. So that was Five Nights at Freddy's, the movie, that exists because...
I don't know why.
I know I keep saying this, but it's just weird. The concept, adaptation or not, really should just be a simple premise about evil animatronic animals that come to life and kill people in violent, memorable ways. The PG-13 rating already puts a nail in that coffin, but the character-driven stuff, the supposedly deep plot about child abduction, is not something anybody coming to see a Five Nights at Freddy's movie wanted to see, and even though it is different, it's just not done that well. A big issue is the characters' weird personalities that make no sense, motivations that make no sense, and a dull-as-shit lead. I just don't know what they were going for. None of it really adds up, especially Vanessa, truly baffling writing there. And to top it all off, none of these twists are even that hard to see coming. If it had something to make it stand out, that'd be one thing, but even the jump scares aren't done that well, one of the video game's main traits that should have been a thing here. So in the end, despite not being abysmal, it's not very good either. There's some enjoyment to be had, but not enough to justify the runtime. Willy's Wonderland knew how long something like this should be, but obviously that's not the intention here. It's a movie that fails in a number of ways you wouldn't expect it to, and in the end, the game is obviously still the best way to experience Five Nights at Freddy's. The movie I wouldn't advise, but if you want to see something truly bizarre, this should get that done. I'm the analyst, and remember kids, it's never a good idea to assault somebody in public. Even if you think it's justified, it's best you don't take it that far. So, you've made it to the end. That's an impressive feat indeed. Since you managed that, I guess check out the gaming channel, in which I cover a variety of gaming topics, like analysis videos, such as this one. If you're into that, then press the link in the description. It's that simple.